I think in every character, it's much more what's their human struggle that's universal underneath a specific thing. This is an actor's room, so this is the right room to talk about this. But I think that people have a tendency to, in our trade, to say like, there's kind of a romantic value placed on like ideas like instinctual or visceral or about acting, and I think that that's true. But I always think it's nuts that like the notion that any of the very best actors aren't analytical and cerebral first is the biggest load of crap. And it does a disservice, I think, when people talk about the method and they don't know what they're talking about, and they talk about this, what they're really doing is inadvertently they're encouraging actors to not do their fucking homework. And I've done 2 films with Robert De Niro. I know Daniel Day-Lewis. I know Sean Penn. All the people you say, like, people talk about this in American History X. It's like, those people, I guarantee you, every single time, they're like investigative reporters. It all starts analytically. It all starts from a cerebral, dramaturgical point of view. What's the piece? How does the piece function? What's the style? How does the role fit within the style? What type of person is it? There's nothing instinctual about it in the early phases. It's dramaturgical work. It's literary work. It's style work. It's theme work. It's like it's all that work before you can even begin to go, all right, what's the skin? What's the body? What's the voice? What's the instrument of the whole thing? And how do I get it into the musculature? And in that case, that time with David that I spent, we really talking about it, thinking about it from the point of view of Othello's about jealousy, Macbeth's about pride and ambition. This is about rage. We're going to strip away everything in this, the drug subplot, all this bullshit. We're going to strip it down and make it, this is about a person who destroys himself, all of his potential because of anger. And anything else is peripheral. And the more we got down into that, and the more we started realizing we don't need that, and we need more in the prison. We need to see what happens to him more. That is the work. That's like, for me, that was the work. That was the getting ready. Like, that was the like absorbing, what the hell is this really all about? Because then you can start to go, all right, well, you know, what has he done to himself physically that is the physical echo of these things? How does he talk? How does he things? What's his relation to things? And get in and actually just start to do the work of physicalizing it and all these things. But the accelerant, you know, the clarity and the accelerant for me that comes from the analytical work before is the notion that you would. What I don't like about the over-romanticization of like some idea of the method or whatever is that it kind of suggests something that I think is really, really weak sauce, which is show up and wing it. You know what I mean? Like get in there and just feel it. And I don't go for that. And in fact, when I cast Motherless Brooklyn, which is jumping away, but we had to make this is a big movie. We had to make it in 46 days. And I didn't cast a single actor in that movie who wasn't someone with deep theater experience, because I couldn't have needy actors on that film. I couldn't have anyone who hadn't had the experience of having primary responsibility for the text, and by that I mean has been on stage and had the experience of saying the ball is in my hand and I am carrying it from moment one to moment end. Yeah. I know how to synthesize the totality of the piece, do the work ahead of time, and be ready on stage to deliver the whole thing. Because I couldn't give people on this film more than 2 or 3 takes. There was just no way to do it. And I had to have people who had that kind of command of text. And I think nobody on Motherless Brooklyn, I think it's one of the best ensemble casts I've ever worked in or with as an actor or filmmaker or anything. Nobody on that film was in anything even approaching a method mode. Everybody was in there working as a tradecraft pro, nimbly, prepared, ready, and not asking for a precious environment of concentration, because I couldn't give it to him. I couldn't give it to him. And in fact, I was the disruptive force, because you work together.
Too,
to the degree actors can, what do we all do? We blow up a bubble of suspension of all of what's going on around you, especially on films. You help each other push all that away, and within your little thing, pretend it's real and be in it. And when one of you is ping-ponging out of it, you're the one messing it up. You know what I mean? And I couldn't have actors who were going to be like, snowflakes about that. And I think I think it's important to say that, because I think it's like not every approach serves the demands of every piece or every type of work. And I think there's times you need pure professionalism, like a violinist. They know how to play the instrument.
We'll talk about sense memory and some of the ideas behind that. I think it's a very, very interesting exercise. I think it can be a means of opening up those conduits in you, those emotional conduits in you, so that things flow a little more freely. I think that I personally always responded more to the idea that imagination gives you outlet into more places. I think there is nobody whose personal experience is as rich as a human imagination. That's my personal opinion. I've always thought that the fundamental sort of Stanislavskian statement that like you're behaving naturally under imagined circumstances is a good basic place to start. Because it contains the word imagination in it. There's Sandy Meisner's ideas about, exercises like the repetition exercise that I think are really effective. Sidney Pollack was on this show one time, and I saw it, and he said it perfectly because he was one of his teachers. He said, it really is about getting you to listen, and I would put that very high on the list of things that I think good actors do. They actually listen to what the other person's saying. It's probably one of the cornerstones of it. I think when I encounter good actors, I think they're always listening to you. But I found, for me personally, the repetition exercises, it had an interesting effect on me, which was, it makes you listen, but it also got me out of my head. It got me past the point of analysis. It took me past analysis of the text. And so it had this like weird side effect on me that was good for me, because I'll get up. The place I needed to get was out of my head. My best advice is like, go out and put as many things in that little black bag as you can find.
It's an extension of this same conversation. You have to be literate. You have to be well read. You have to read plays. You have to watch films. You have to understand. I think one of the best pieces of advice a teacher ever gave me was, you got to understand style, in the sense that like the Coen brothers demand a very different sort of work than Paul Thomas Anderson does, maybe. You know what I mean? It's like there is style, and if you're doing the Hudsucker Proxy and you're bringing like a low-key, banal like naturalism, you're out. You know what I mean? Like you're gone.
Right.
Like you need conversancy with the filmmakers you hope to work with, right? And so I think literacy is important, and I think looking at, in a funny way, this kind of stuff is great. I always used to look for stuff like this. There was, those cahiers de cinema I used to love, or projections. There was that series of books, or somebody on somebody, like everything about film process I used to devour.
Anybody who says that they're trapped or that it's nonsense, you have
you make your own decisions about what your values are and what your priorities are, and you work the way you want to work if you're lucky, and you make the choices you make. So I think the worst thing about being an actor is the lack of autonomy in a fundamental sense, because you're waiting for someone else to have interest in you playing a role, but at the same time you have an enormous amount of autonomy about what you want to work on and what you want to express or choose to focus on, and how you conduct yourself in and around the work, and then separately is all up to you, I think.
What do you wish directors better understood about working with actors? What do you wish they better knew about what you need from them?
Well, since I'm not going near that one, Ed.
I think simplicity. I think directors sometimes think that talking about the totality of the meaning of a moment, talking about the film they're trying to make is going to be helpful to an actor, and it's the worst thing in the world. The truth is, good actors are I think, empaths. They are empathetic to situational emotion, if you want to call it that. And really all you need to do is, for me, I've always found, if you just say, like, don't criticize so much, cajole. Don't mollify her. Discipline her. You know what I mean? It's like that's all you need. Like all you need to do is give someone a verb, really, and they can radically alter. And usually people will go. I think actors will go, "Oh, right, of course, done." Like that's. But talking about everything. It's just crushing, I think, too, because it puts a person in their head, which is not where you want to be.
That way.
When we were doing the first scene you showed, where our characters meet, I think we were ripping into it, and we were having a blast. I mean, we were actually, I would say, we were quite happy. We did a bunch of them, and I think we were enjoying it a lot, and there was a lot going on that we were pretty happy with. And Alejandro came in and on that scene and really, when I say lit into us, he just was very, very unhappy with what was going on. He was tearing at his hair, and he was going, guys. It was a lot of like that.
What were his complaints?
And I remember, a lot of times we had a lot of. I mean, I had a huge amount of fun working with Michael. So and we had a very easy rhythm, I thought. So when someone comes in like that, I was kind of like looking at Michael, like, how's he going to react? I love Alejandro and kind of was up for it, but he was coming in and
what did he say specifically about?
He basically said,
"Stop it."
He basically said everything. He basically said everything that you're doing is the exact opposite of what this needs to be. He really did. He said, I need it to go 180 degrees in a different direction. That's what he thought.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, you want, and if you believe in somebody, which I believe in him to the, on a cellular level, I'm like, great. So you want to be that? You want me to go 180 degrees the opposite? Let's do it. So we did, and we kind of lit into it and did, I think, a fairly different thing. And he came back and said, no, it's got to be like 180 degrees the opposite direction. And I looked at Chivo, because they've been friends since, college.
The DP.
I just looked at him, just like, you heard that, right? Like, you heard it. And Alejandro walked away, and Chivo goes, he's not talking to you, he's talking to himself.
Man, there's a lot of that. But
that was true. That was actually real wisdom, because
That's very helpful, actually,
this movie is all about ego, and look, someone comes in and says, what you're doing is the exact opposite of what you need to be doing. You get a voice in you goes, I'm being disapproved of, or whatever. And you got to let that go and realize that I think what Chivo's saying is right. Like, sometimes you just got to give somebody room you just gotta, if they say black, just do black. And if they say, now let's try white, let's just do white. And if they say go back to black, just go back to black, because there's something that he's trying to figure out for himself that...
And he doesn't know until he has you in front of him doing it.
Yeah, and if you don't apply the full force of everything you've got to exploring what the idea is he's interested in, then how's he going to put away that idea and confidently say, that wasn't a good idea? You know, I do think that's where actors sometimes have to just get over their instincts, and if you really trust a director, say, paint it 4 different ways just so that he can see why an idea isn't working and trust that you gave it your all. You know, I think that's really important.
I hate the thing of chit chat before you read. I think it's like introducing your own film. It's a disaster. It's like you're atomizing everything you're about to try to do. It's like, hey, let's meet each other, and then now I'm going to go put on a Kentucky accent and pretend. You know, it's like, why does this help? So I would always kind of subtly, in a way, say to whoever was, it's like, can we talk after? You know, can we just come and do the thing? And usually people like that.
The business of the movie industry is a very different question than the business of being an actor. I think being an actor shouldn't really be a business. It's whatever you make of it. I think.
I hate having the lack of autonomy that actors have. I hate that we wait on other people. There's beautiful things about what we get to do, but waiting on other people to give us a gig sucks, like, eternally. It will never not suck. It has always sucked. It will never not suck. And inevitably, I just think that it's part of the existential burden of actors is, at some point, you just got to make the work you want to make. You got to make your own work. You got to be part of making the work. The minstrel tradition, put it all in a wagon, go to town, set up the fucking set, put on the costumes, do your own makeup. You know, it's like that we've been boxed into separated unions and all these things. But the truth is, I think, it's just none of us at any phase are lucky. I mean, there's so few are lucky enough to just get to read one thing, read another thing. I'll do this. I won't do this. I won't. That's just not the condition of the tribe. It's always, and I think to some degree we've got to make our own way and make our own opportunities for work. One thing that's fun, I think, writing as an actor, writing with other actors in mind, and writing for a huge cohort of actors that I've worked with for 25 years, or known, or is that you can hear them and you can see them. And so, like, for me, you know, I was actually so hung up on Bobby Cannavale doing the part that I got very gripped about we were trying to work out his schedule with The Irishman, and but there's lines in the movie. He says he's getting frustrated with Ethan. He says, like, I know it's cold, that's why they call it winter, you know, and not everybody can get away with that, but Bobby can, and there are certain things that Alex says that, you know, when I hear them come out of his mouth, it's very, it's great. It's special. There's some people have an imprint, and you can kind of hear that in it. And when you actually get those people that you wrote with it in mind, that's pretty special. Because of the time constraints, which were very real, I actually could not. The director, me, the producer, I could not afford actor Edward needing a lot of time. And in a weird way, the fact that I knew I was going to cut it and shape it, I felt I trust myself, so I wasn't precious. I was free to experiment and to very quickly bracket the performance and do one at 2, do one at 4, do one at 8, and do one redlined, crazy. Give myself a lot of raw material, which was very much, by the way, a Milos Forman wisdom to me. Milos told me once, that making films is all about casting and editing, and that in between, all you're doing is gathering raw clay. If your actors are right and you're a good editor, you get yourself everything you can get yourself, and it helped me on this because it let me as an actor serve myself in an uninhibited way. I had less self-consciousness, less protectiveness about doing something that I later would go, oh, I hope he doesn't use that, you know. And it did liberate me to work in a somewhat more freely experimental way without too much self-consciousness. That's good. What's not so great is just all the headspace that you try to, all the space you try to create for yourself as an actor to get out of your head and into the muscle memory goes away. It gets just completely eaten by the necessary work directing. It's worth saying, along in the vein of that thing of like actors doing what they have to do. It's like I made this film for like 1/10 of the budget of The Irishman, and because we had to, it's very hard to get these kinds of films together, even with Bruce, everything. And this film was co-financed by actors because everybody in it came in and did it for me for scale, like from Bruce on down. And I had to say to everybody, I don't have money on this film. And that entire cast, Bruce, Alec, Willem, Gugu, Bobby, Cherry Jones, Michael K. Williams, Dallas Roberts, Josh
Leslie
Pice.
Mann.
Yeah, Leslie, everybody right on down just said, let's get this made. And to me, I'm not sharing that like it's not some kind of extra credit, but I do think it's important for actors to hear that like what actors can get together and leverage things. There are ways to hack things when we get together around stuff that you can figure it out together, and that was very gratifying to me. This film essentially being made possible by actors being committed to the work, and I'm going to be paying it off for a long time. I've been like, if you see me in Die Hard 8, and if you say to yourself like, any movie, if it's like that seems beneath him, just go. He's paying off Motherless Brooklyn, and it's worth it.
Oh, by the way.